Welcome to the Investigators This Week. I'm David Charnes alongside investigator Kyle Payne here at KLAS in Las Vegas. We are talking about some of the stories that we worked on the past week and also what we're going to be working on heading into 2026, which always looking for ideas and tips from you at home. Kyle, interesting week. We're talking about a murder sentencing and
tweet you at David Charnes.
Ongoing things in Henderson. What did you say?
I said tweet you at David Charnes.
Tweet me, yeah. So because they came up, but my Instagram is at David Charnes News, and then my Twitter, I was able to actually get my name all those many years ago. X, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So let's talk about a murder sentencing that I covered on Thursday. So we had previously talked about on this program the murder involving Devyn Michaels. She is a 47-year-old former adult film star here in Las Vegas who murdered her ex-husband. We talked about this, Kyle. We did a half-hour show about the whole murder trial. You and I both covered it for 2 weeks in November. This is a woman who did not have custody of her two children that she shared with her ex-husband. However, that ex-husband, Jonathan Willett, allowed those children to live with Devyn Michaels in the summer of 2023. And then in August of 2023, Jonathan Willett was found decapitated inside his Henderson home. And in that program that we did a couple weeks ago, we talked about the murder trial and how ultimately that jury found her guilty of first-degree murder for this murder. And then obviously takes a couple weeks, but there was a sentencing, and that sentencing happened earlier this week. She was sentenced to 28 years to life, and we'll talk about that after you see the report that I filed on Thursday.
Deliver what the family is hoping for.
The family of the man 47-year-old Devyn Michaels killed and beheaded could barely hear her in court before a judge sent her to prison for decades. Michaels killed 46-year-old Jonathan Willett inside his Henderson home in 2023, a jury finding her guilty of first-degree murder after a 2-week trial.
We cannot bring Jonathan back. God has gained an angel in heaven. We believe he is watching over us and the girls.
2 girls, who Jonathan Willett's father and stepmother are now raising.
I ask today for justice for our family, especially the girls, because we have been sentenced for life with this tragedy.
A tragedy prosecutors believe involved a custody battle, though they say Jonathan Willett, who had custody, allowed his children to live with Michaels anyway. Days after the murder, but before her arrest for it, this video the 80s investigators obtained shows her in a different courtroom on a child abuse charge.
This is Tracy Tavares.
She's using a different name, and she told the judge this.
Everyone I've spoken to say I'm not an abusive person, and they don't feel there's any risk for me to abuse her or would ever do this again.
Her girls are going to die with the knowledge that she killed their father.
Jonathan Willett's family happy with the sentence of 28 years to life.
That's where she should be. You know, if you take somebody's life, you shouldn't be out wandering around.
So what was interesting about that day, Kyle, when I was covering that was the first time we heard from the family on the record.
So you covered that the first week of January 2026.
Yes.
We're covering this the end of the first week of January 2026.
Yes, we are recording this on January 9th, on Friday, 2026. That was yesterday, Thursday, and the murder trial was in mid-November.
Right.
The murder itself happened in August of 2023, and as Jonathan Willett's father said, it was 28 months of heartbreak for them.
They were heartbroken. The verdict, I tried to speak with them. They were obviously not in the mood to talk, and that is completely understandable. But it was heavy over there with them.
Yeah, and what was really interesting is I said to them, so I think one of the things that people don't realize when we do any court coverage is how small these courtrooms are. They're not those big Law and Order TV courtrooms that you see. They're like 3 rows of seats, and then that's basically then what you see on TV is what you see.
And when you split it from there's one behind the defense and one behind the prosecution, it's very compact.
2 sides, yeah. So there's not much going on. So they were sitting in front of us the whole time, and you soon know who's kind of involved and who's related to what. And what was obviously interesting about this case is that Devyn Michaels was married to Jonathan Willett, the man she killed, and then she divorced Jonathan in 2018 and then married Jonathan's son.
Sort of in secret, right?
In secret. The family didn't really know, but they were living together. So ultimately, her husband was also her ex-stepson. It gets really confusing, and I try to think about it, how to explain it, but her
For those
children,
older viewers, it's like Chinatown.
it's really difficult. Her children were that man's both half sibling and stepfather. So
Correct.
it gets very, anyway,
The ultimate incestuous love triangle.
in a way. So long story short, what I'm trying to articulate here is, personally, when I'm covering these cases, and I said this to the family yesterday, what we do in the medium that we're in, being on television, doing videos, is quite intrusive as it is. And we're there with a big camera watching and
With our
doing these
laptops.
stories. And I explained to them, when you're doing a story about a murder with all the information that we just covered over the past 5 minutes, and I'm condensing it into a 2-minute long story, it's invasive.
And they
on
watch.
its own, and they watch. And I said to them, I didn't really want to say anything. Like, I kind of make it, we make ourselves known by walking in the room, because we are clearly TV people who are covering this. And after the sentencing, I hadn't even introduced myself, and the stepmother gave me a big hug. And she's like, "Thank you for being here. Thank you for covering this." And, I said, the reason I do this is because a victim like your stepson doesn't have a voice, right? And it's important on a couple reasons to cover it. We want to show how the justice system works. We want to show how trials work. We want to show all that, because we want to show how our society works and functions. And they basically said a lot to me about how those two people, who are grandparents to those girls who are now 10 and 12, they had never even met those kids before Jonathan Millett died. And they had never even met Devyn Michaels,
Really?
which I didn't know until the sentencing. They said they had seen her one day when they went over to his house. She was standing in like the door, but they had never met her. They basically they said they saw him maybe around the holidays, but they didn't really have much of a relationship with him, his son, and they had never even met her at all, which I thought was very interesting.
It is, because during the closing arguments that I went to the same day as the verdict came, the prosecutor was disparaging Devyn Michaels in any number of ways to try and convince the jury of her guilt, and the family was nodding along as if they knew all those bad things firsthand about her.
They told me they had done research into her, so they had seen the story that I had mentioned in that report that I did after she was arrested, that she was actually in the same building 2 days after Jonathan Millett was murdered on a child abuse charge.
Oh, that's right.
And she told the judge, "I'm not a violent person. I'm not going to do this again." Let alone then a couple days later, she's arrested for his murder. But they had seen that story. They saw that she was using a different name. They had, she used at least 6 different names.
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot of aliases.
A lot of different aliases.
That they read
at
in
the
court.
thing, yeah.
Yes.
So it was just really interesting. And then they basically are very happy that she will serve at least 28 years, which means that after 28 years, she'll go before the parole board. And then eventually, if and when she is paroled, which at that point she'd be in her early 70s, she would then be on probation for the rest of her life. Now, 28 to life, though, it's a murder. It's basically the minimum sentence to the maximum sentence. And I think the judge kind of weighed, look, she's a 47-year-old woman, 28 years. She doesn't really have much to live. But anyway. So
Before you break, no head still.
And they never found the victim's head, which is unfortunate. But the family, last note, the dad worked in medicine and told me that he used to attend autopsies. So he was very familiar with this whole thing, because they were showing really gruesome photos in this trial, and they were just sitting there, and he said, "I'm used to that." So
I was not used to it.
So that is the Devyn Michaels case. You can watch all of our coverage, 8newsnow.com/investigators.
Very good coverage.
You can also go to @David Charnes News on my Instagram, and I have a bunch of different videos on there where we she showed my work. Okay, coming up after this short break, we're going to be talking about what's happening in Henderson, the work that Kyle and James Schaefer have been doing the past week, and the document that shed some new light on Carrie Cox. After this. Welcome back to The Investigators. I'm David Sharns alongside Kyle Payne. We are going to revisit some of what's happening in the city of Henderson. This was a big story in the fall. Councilwoman Carrie Cox indicted on a charge of recording fellow councilor Councilwoman Monica Larson, basically a year ago this time during a party. Kyle, one of the really interesting things that we learned in this is a very rare charge that prosecutors use, and it's never actually been prosecuted fully. The 2 or 3 people, I think it was 2 people that have gotten this charge previously of listening to someone, I don't know the exact charge, but
it's like
recording someone without their consent, have never gone full. They certainly have never been indicted. But a grand jury indicted Councilwoman Carrie Cox on this charge for this recording. And this week, what happened?
This week, you got an audio transcript. So they had interviewed her covertly. It says on the very top of the interview, it was a covert recording. They were in a vehicle discussing the possibility that she may have recorded something. Ultimately, with a search warrant, they took her phone, and that led to...
There was a lot of investigating about this incident.
Yes.
And I'm honestly not really sure why, but that's for another day. But what is interesting about this case is it happened in January of 2025.
Yes.
And they talked to her a couple times because we'll show it in a second, but she basically is at this event at City Hall, and she's behind a curtain, and she's standing there with her phone as another councilwoman who she has some beef with is on the other side, and they're talking, and she's recording them. What is interesting is there was a lot of resources put into this, which involved a very thorough document that's called a officer's report about all the investigating. There were interviews and transcripts, and obviously a grand jury was convened
we covered
to
all
charge
of it.
her. What we did not get at the time of the indictment was a copy of this police interview. And over the past couple months under the sheriff's leadership, Metro has kind of changed their policies covertly about what they're releasing, what they're not releasing.
Quietly.
And they tend quietly, thank you. And they tend to release stuff that we ask for that we weren't able to get under previous leadership. And that involved this transcript that Carrie Cox had, this conversation that was transcribed with police.
I had no idea we would ever get that. You, of course, have...
I always say we're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
So, but let's show you what aired this week. It's a quick clip
But explosive.
from our newscast, and here that is.
New tonight, a Henderson City Councilwoman says she's working with the FBI and that the mayor and other city council members allegedly, quote, run money through LLCs. These allegations from a transcript of an interview with City Councilwoman Carrie Cox that obtained by the 8 News Now investigators. Cox is facing felony charges. Police say she illegally recorded a conversation of another councilwoman. The mayor and the city deny all the allegations.
So what happened in that transcript is she says she's working with the FBI. Now, that is what she says. The FBI does not ever comment on investigations. And do I think she's working with the FBI? I think she might have talked to the FBI. Do you think she's working with the FBI?
I can't speculate one way or the other, but I will tell you that as a general rule, if she says something, I tend to believe it. But all that is going to come out one way or another if the longer this case goes in state court. But so we just saw about a 25-second clip of that. Of what was a very long and windy
60
web
pages?
article. Well, the interview itself, transcript, single space, was about 39 pages.
Right. And I literally, I like kind of sharing how the sausage is made.
Yes.
And James called me at 7:45 one morning and was like, can you request this transcript? And I got it.
It could have been midnight. We were on it at 11:30 the night before.
And then I got the transcript and I literally just control find FBI.
Me too.
And then I called him and I was like, that's exactly what you're looking for. But we wanted to show you his story from when Carrie Cox was actually indicted.
Sure.
And we'll play that for you now. This is package 2, Carlos.
James Schaefer report.
24 hours after a censure vote, a Henderson councilwoman appears in court. Her fellow city council members in the courtroom reacting to her plea.
She will be entering a not guilty plea.
Councilwoman Carrie Cox pleading not guilty to one felony charge of monitoring or attempting to monitor a private conversation. Video released from a grand jury indictment showing Cox recording an allegedly private conversation Monica Larson had with 2 other individuals earlier this year at Henderson City Hall. It resulted in a 10-month LVMPD investigation, which found several new claims, but only resulting in the felony charge.
She betrayed the public trust by alleging that she actually cared about them and would work for their concerns.
Monday night, that officer's report leading the city council, whom have long been at odds with Cox, to censure her, resulting in Cox's removal from regional boards and cutting her staff communications. The city attorney clarified Cox will remain a councilwoman.
Censure had to happen due to the egregious incidents that are listed in the report. So if you take the time to read it, you would understand.
Larson responding, reacting to the continued news coverage and pushing back on 8 News Now.
They should consider the source. Look at the media, especially Channel 8, over the last year since I've been in office. In particular, one of your reporters who did another story, and all of his stories have been regarding me.
Larson referring to 8 News Now investigator Kyle Payne's story Monday night on Larson's repeated calls to non-emergency numbers. One of the incidents mentioned did lead the councilwoman to be reminded by the city on their policy regarding police. Now, Cox is expected to reappear in court on October 19th of next year. Reporting from the Regional Justice Center, James Schaefer, 8 News Now.
And since then, Carrie Cox's attorney has filed a pretty standard document saying that this indictment should be, what's the word?
Yeah, essentially
scrubbed.
Let go, yeah.
Yeah, that there's no there. But anyway, what's a lot to kind of unpack there. So Monica's talking about you.
Right.
Councilwoman
there was
Larson
no doubt she was talking about me.
About Kyle. Kyle's done several stories about Councilwoman Larson, about her degree in psychology, about her calling police repeatedly, which all kind of plays into all these Henderson stories. What do you want to say about that?
Well,
and then about...
It's always something in Henderson. And the most recent thing, and the reason I wanted to talk about it today, is because what the article that we ran based on the transcript we were talking about, and Councilwoman Cox saying that she's working with the FBI, but also that it's sort of indicating that some people within the city are working, running money through private LLCs. Like, there was no proof of any of that, but just the notion that in a what essentially was an interrogation
in a police car.
What
was in an interview with police about recording another council person in the video you saw there, ended up being talking about other potential politicians in the city funneling money through LLCs.
Yes, and so we would like to know if that's true, and we'll be following up on that.
There are a lot of questions
because the mayor denied it, called it lies.
The mayor has denied it. Other people have denied it. I will say that I'm not by any means saying this is true.
No.
But there have been allegations and whispers of this for years.
It's one of their go-tos.
There have been talks about possible corruption issues, but I think any political opponent is going to say something about another political opponent.
Sure, that's
like
politics.
But
and
let's
just
play
rumors.
The mayor's comments.
So after Monica Larson spoke about me, they censured Carrie Cox, the city council, and the mayor.
At a city council meeting, they said what she did allegedly, even though she said she did it too, is that was inappropriate. They censured her. And in that meeting, what was that, in November?
It was
end of
around
November.
then, yes.
We're all watching it, and then they start talking about Kyle.
Yeah.
So let's play the soundbite.
This is Mayor Michelle
from
Romero.
The mayor talking about Kyle.
Report after report by Mr. Payne targets Councilwoman Larson, city management, the police department. In fact, since February, Mr. Payne has reported 9 times negatively about the city. However, he did promote the fact that Carrie was running for re-election. Not one article, however, was negative toward Ms. Cox, despite the fact that she was the target of a cease and desist letter, numerous disputes with other council members, and had been indicted. In fact, he has notified Councilwoman Larson of his intent to air yet another unfavorable report on her tonight. That really doesn't seem like coincidence.
What I think is really interesting about that comment is, and again, I work with you and we sit next to each other every day, but you didn't do anything wrong. And I think that what they were trying to show, and again, what was in that report, and that what we keep calling the officer's report, which everyone has referred to in these stories,
and is available online,
and is available for you to read online, is your name is redacted in it, but
but the police,
they're talking about you, and she named you, and you can put it all together.
Yes.
But what I would say to her and to the response, I don't want to say the other side, but is if you want us to look into something or to report something, you need to tell us. And I'm not saying that there are people who are saying go do X, Y, and Z, but that's how our stories happen. And if no one responds, I've done stories critical of Henderson before, and if I don't get a response and I have allowed you weeks or even months in one case to respond to a story, it's not my fault if you don't look good.
True.
Fair?
Yes. But the mayor also intimated that it wasn't a coincidence that the day that Carrie Cox...
She intimated that you and Carrie Cox are colluding against the city, which is so far from the truth.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Cox is going to have her own agenda. She's an elected person. She's going to do whatever she wants to do. We hear from people all the time, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, nonpartisan, whatever, about stories. And if there's a there,
everyone gets information from somewhere.
Correct. And if other people want to provide information, which have happened, she mentioned those other stories that were covered. They were covered because someone said, "Hey, there's a cease and desist letter."
But the mayor also mentioned coverage that I didn't do, but that Channel 8 did do. James did it, or other reporters did it, and we have all that. It's all there.
Honestly, it doesn't really matter.
I guess not.
The stories are still going to happen. If the stories that Kyle has done about Carrie Cox, about Councilwoman Larson, they happened.
And
it's video. We're showing body cam. So anyway, long story short, she says she's working with the FBI. We'll see where that goes. And Kyle, the FBI has not contacted you yet.
I have not heard from the FBI.
Maybe for a press release. All right. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk about some of the stories that we're looking forward to in 2026. All right, let's talk about what to expect in 2026, at least some of the stuff that we're already working on headed into the year. Kyle, I'll say that I did a lot of stories in 2025 about the DUI laws and about the system, and we talked about people who had 4 DUIs, didn't have to pay any bail, and then killed people. We talked about blood testing delays. We talked about how 2 troopers died and a legislature did nothing about it.
Am I right that the legislature uses your reporting to discuss whether to change the laws? Yes.
I know that my reporting was widely seen, and I know that, in my opinion, just from talking with some different people, that the first stories I did in last winter, in the beginning of that legislative session about the DUI stuff and why are we doing this? Why did we have 2 police officers killed by one DUI driver, get hit and killed by a DUI driver while they were investigating another DUI driver? I think my reporting kind of just started that conversation again. And then ultimately in the special session in November, they upped the penalties from 2 to 20 to 2 to 25 years in DUI with death. No one's ever going to get 25 years, or I should say no one's ever going to serve 25 years. And that is what I'm working on in 2026, because I'm now looking at, okay, someone gets sentenced to 8 to 20 years. Are they serving 8 or are they serving 20? Because surprise, they're not serving 20.
That's a good
story. So
I'm
kind of looking at it from the other side. I have a bunch of data. I have a couple families who've unfortunately been victims of DUI with death, who have gone through the parole process of watching someone who killed their loved one then get paroled. And so we're kind of going to be talking about that. So that's my big story that I'm working on in these next couple weeks. Kyle's still on the Henderson beat. What else do you have in the can?
we have a lot of Henderson. One story I'm trying to work on is we got a tip about someone who said that their ex-husband was a sex offender and still ended up with full custody of one of the children. So, that's what we call a talker. And then today, I'm supposed to interview a borrower, a veteran whose bank is taking his money every month and saying that he's not paying, destroyed his credit score, and he says is really affecting his life for the worse.
And I always say that some of our best stories come from emails or messages. The story I did a couple weeks ago with the new traffic unit at University Police came from one of those officers' wives messaging me on Instagram.
Really?
So you never know what you're going to get in your inbox. The stories Vanessa's done about the teen group homes came from an email that we got from a viewer. So
that's on here on the streaming app. We did that.
You can watch that.
She's covering
show.
the Nathan Chasing Horse trial soon.
And Vanessa will be covering the trial of Nathan Chasing Horse, the former actor in Dances with Wolves, who faces a bunch of different charges and is headed to trial. Will that trial actually start the week that this is actually airing? I don't know if they'll start. It's been postponed several times.
Vanessa also has High Heels and Hidden Truths every Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on the streaming app.
Show. So a lot going on. I would implore you, if you have something for us to look at or you want to just say, hey, you can message us on X or on Instagram or send us an email. And all that information is at 8newsnow.com/investigators.
Good job, David.
We appreciate your watching. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.